Well, thank you so much, everybody, and thank you so much for joining in this, what we believe is a God-ordained conversation, and really that's how we look at this, as a conversation. And we have been interacting, Phindi, and with regards to really what it is that we believe God has laid in our hearts, and that's a story for a different day as to how we prepare. Certainly, from different cities and so forth. Um, but we really thank God for the grace that God has placed upon us, and we believe, Uguti, that tonight is going to be a blessing, and we're really just going to jump into it. And we want to, today, I'm just going to speak, just paint, just in 2 minutes, just the background, so that we don't just jump into it. We want to talk. Are you wanting to say something? I see your hand is lifted.
Yes, baby. I wanted to greet before you jump into it.
Oh, thank you.
And I thought, let me do it the way it's always done on Teams, by raising my hand.
Oh, yeah.
I'm glad you could actually see my hand. But I think, I just wanted to obviously just greet all everybody who's in this meeting. I think there's about 48 of us in this meeting. Greetings from Durban. Thank you so much for having us. We are really excited about tonight, and we really hope, I think, just to echo Mo's words, we are trusting that this message that God has really put in our hearts is really a message that will find a place in someone, tonight. And we really hope, and it is our prayer, that obviously it changes lives and it impacts, people. But just also, and just to emphasize, it's a conversation. We're having a chat. It's just that we are sitting in our PJs, some of us, but we are just having a chat. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We don't take that for granted. We're excited that the number has grown to 55, and welcome. And we hope you're going to enjoy this session with us tonight. Over to you, babe.
Thank you so much, Phindi. So for purposes of connectivity, we're going to switch our what do you call it? So our cameras off, and just so that we ensure that at least our voices are more audible. I hope that is fine with everybody. Thank you so much, everybody. I just wanted to lay this quick foundation, really, about what we're going to share, and we want to talk about really about the subject. Your marriage is not a mistake, and here is your mistake. And we're going to get into what the mistake is. But your marriage in itself, it is not a mistake. Your partner is not a mistake. You didn't marry wrong. Of all the mistakes you have done in your life, the person you chose to marry is not one of them, is not one of those mistakes. And that's the case we want to plead this evening. And we base that really on Matthew chapter 19. And we're going to be very practical, but we want to just put a background in terms of the scripture, but we're going to be very practical tonight. In Matthew chapter 19, Jesus is having a conversation about this very issue, about divorce and so forth. And, and then he speaks and he says, as he engages on the subject, that, for this reason, quoting Genesis chapter 2, for this reason shall a man leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one. And then he says, therefore, what God has joined together. And then he says, let no man put asunder. And we want to begin with that as a wall, a sort of a background that we want to, for 2 minutes, that we want to put up before we go. We have prepared our slides. And when the scripture says, therefore, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Nopindi, we speak about this, for 2 hours. So we're not going to do that tonight on this, because the point is not that. But we just want to say, that verse, has in it a couple of optional assumptions. And the first optional assumption that we derive from that verse, that what God has joined together, let no man put asunder, or let no man separate. The first optional assumption about that verse is that, first of all, God can join, because it says what God has joined together. In other words, God can join. God can take two people who are coming from two different backgrounds and orchestrate their paths such that they meet together. And God is actually part of that process, of joining those two together. We're not going to dwell on that. The second optional assumption that we want to put forward is that, what God joins to God, the Bible says, what God joins together, let no man put asunder, or let no man separate. It also implies that what God joined together, people can enjoy. In other words, there are circumstances in life that you can encounter, whether it's just circumstances and caused by life itself, or whether it's people who come in between the two people that have been joined by God, and they are powerful enough to come in between even that which has been joined by God, and they can actually separate. Hence the admonition that do not do it. Don't come between it. What God has joined together. Don't separate it. In other words, it's an instruction to people. It's an instruction to. So the first optional assumption is that God can join people. The second optional assumption is that, and it's a very legitimate one, is that what God has joined, people can unjoin. And the third one, also that is implied in the text, is that when he says what God has joined together, it's referring to a specific couple, if you like. He says this couple has been joined together, and what God has joined together, let no man separate. The other assumption is that not everybody that is joined is actually joined by God, because he says that he is addressing a specific group of people. He says that those that God has joined together, in other words, there are some who are not joined by God. That is another optional assumption that we put, and in Matthew chapter 14 we see the evidence of this with the story of Herod and Herodias, where John the Baptist was about to be beheaded, and where he says that Herod wanted to marry somebody who it was sinful for him to marry. In other words, it was wrong of him to marry that person. So not everybody that is joined is in fact joined by God. That is the implication of that scripture. But here's another assumption as well from that scripture, that even though that we are not joined, even though that you are not joined by God, even though there's a group of people that may not be joined by God, God can redeem. God can redeem even the relationships that have not necessarily been joined by God. And again, with this, we see the story of David and Bathsheba. Where David orchestrated for the killing of the husband of Bathsheba, so who goes by the name of Uriah, and the Bible says that relationship actually, it began wrong. It began in an ungodly fashion. And it beginning in an ungodly fashion, it was orchestrated by a person in his sinful nature. And however, that relationship, and there was a child, by the way, that was born out of that relationship, and that child did not leave. But in Psalms 51, we see a David who says, referring to that specific incident where he is actually repenting and he says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a righteous spirit on the inside of me. The issue here is, Bazalwane, we may have begun wrong. We may have begun, not every one of us, our relationships began at church. Some of us, our relationship began at a tavern. Some of us, our relationship began, because, there was somebody else in that, and we became third parties, and then the other person left, and then, there's a whole lot of circumstances that led to people. I want to encourage people who, may be living under condemnation, even for divorce, because this is again another subject that a whole lot of us as Abazarwane were divided against, and we hold different views on and so forth, and we want to respect that. And this is not the theme here tonight. Even for some people who have gone through divorces and remarried, God can redeem a relationship. Divorce is not an unforgivable sin. Divorce is a forgivable sin. The Bible is very explicit about sins that are unforgivable in the word. And the issue here is it takes two variables. It takes the variable of my repentant heart, and secondly, the mercy of God. And if I have gone through that process, of having started wrong, but invite God in my marriage, God can actually turn things for his good, in terms of my marriage. So I really want to kick off with that background and really just encourage Abazalwane ukuthi, you may have started wrong, but it does not mean that your relationship is entirely wrong on its own. With an invitation of Christ to be at the center of your marriage, it is important for us to keep in mind that God can redeem even that which has begun wrong. And that's why we want to discourage people from, and we've seen a lot of people over the years who come to us and say, hey, because we've begun wrong in this marriage of ours, I think that I've married wrong, and therefore I think that I should leave, the marriage altogether with children and so forth. And we want to discourage that. We want to. You did not marry wrong. You did not. And this is the point of the theme here tonight, Uguti, that your marriage is not a mistake. God can use any relationship. God can use any person on earth. If he did it with prostitutes in the Bible, if he did it with people who were promiscuous in the Bible, if he did it with any person that you can think of, murderers in the Bible, God can actually use that relationship, your marriage, for his glory. And I wanted to paint that as a picture about the permanence of marriage, that we are engaged in a relationship that is permanent with each other. And therefore, us being together, Bazalwane, it is not a mistake. Your partner is not a mistake. You are not a mistake. Your marriage is not a mistake. Your marriage is is actually what it should be at this point. And it may not be ideal in the sense that we met under perfect circumstances, but certainly our marriage is not a mistake. We cannot live our lives with that shadow, with that dark cloud over our lives. We need to go to God in repentance when we know how our marriages began, and we need to invite the mercies of God over our lives so that we can continue and be used of God ngendlela that uNkulunkulu wishes to use us in our marriages. Amen. And so we want to start off today with that concept, the concept that marriage is not a mistake. So can you take over?
Did you share did you share his screen today? Did you share presentation? Sorry.
I think.
Let me try. Just a second.
Yeah.
Are you able to share, Sissy?
I've just restarted my laptop. If you can share.
Let me
I was
try.
struggling with my. Okay.
Let me quickly try whilst you are trying to do on your side. Sudi, you can continue from your side. You can just speak from the first slide on your side.
Okay.
Whilst I'm trying to put it on.
Okay, there it is, there it is, there it is. Okay, so Bazalwane, when we see our spouses or even our marriages as a mistake, we are making a very big mistake, actually. When you see your spouse as a mistake, you will never enjoy your marriage, especially their company. As you have formed a mindset in your life, Yoguti, that it will not that you will not totally accept them as the way they are. When we see our spouses as a mistake, we immediately look at them in a particular way. We look at them in a manner that says, there is nothing that they can actually there is nothing they can actually do. There's nothing they can actually say that will make you change your glasses. The way that you see your spouse, when you see them as a mistake, that affects, everything in terms of your perception of them. And secondly, I'm not seeing anything on my side, so you let me know when you are able to share when the thing is shared.
I will do so. Please go ahead.
Okay. And also, secondly, Bazalwane, gosh, I'm so sorry. The technology is really messing up with us this evening.
You can check from your phone as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So firstly, as we said, when you see your spouse as a mistake, you'll never enjoy your marriage, especially their company. You will prefer other people's company more than your spouse. You will prefer other people's, company. Whether those companies is friends, whether those companies is it's even work. And even worse when it's work, because it sounds right. It sounds like, okay, baby, I'm spending more time at work, and obviously I'm putting more time. It's for the good of both of us, and so on and so forth. But Bazalwane, you will not. And meanwhile, Uguti, that I'm actually running away from spending time, with my spouse, and there's something fundamentally wrong with that. Whether it's with work or even better, you could say, hey, I grew up with my sister, I grew up with my brother, so you know how close we are, and therefore you spend more time, elsewhere than you would invest in your marriage. And I want to say, Bazalwane, at this point, when we do that, we are actually postponing the problem. When we do that, we are postponing the problem. We can study now and occupy our time now with studies and all of that. But what will happen is that later on, after says graduated, after says achieved the promotions at work and all of that, my spouse will still be around. Even during that time. And therefore, we need to engage with each other and deal with whatever the issues are without necessarily running away. But also, when you see your spouse as a mistake, you will constantly see the reasons why you believe they are a mistake. You'll constantly see the reasons why you believe they are a mistake, and those will be at the fore of your head. You will not be able to, you will not be able to engage with other things, even if they mean good. Whether you don't see good, because in your mind, at the back of your mind, I didn't marry right, or I married a mistake, or my marriage is a mistake. And usually that is said when you see somebody's behavior. And as you have created a pathway in your brain to accept that as a fact, you're accepting the fact that you are accepting, as a fact that your spouse is a mistake, and you have married, wrong, or your marriage is a mistake. And we want to dispel that. But also from that point onwards, your imperfect partner can do nothing that will please your perfect self, really. Because whenever you see your partner as imperfect, you immediately elevate yourself to a point of perfection. You pin everything that is wrong with your marriage on them, as if they are the only reason that everything is wrong. As if they, even though you may say it with your mouth that nobody is perfect, even Nam, but you will never really point out what it is that you are doing wrong. Those words will simply come out of your mouth that even Nam and called perfect, but what do you mean when you say you are not perfect? What is it, Duena? What is your contribution to how things are in this relationship, in this marriage? Because from that point onwards, when you see your partner as wrong and everything, when you believe that your marriage is a mistake, you will continue to have reasons, and there will be legitimate reason, at least in your mind, that that would spell why you married wrong. And from that point onwards, as I said, your imperfect partner can do nothing right that will please your perfect self. In other words, whether you'll be the only one who is perfect in this relationship, because again, whether you married wrong, and then whatever they do, it is misinterpreted and taken to mean, and taken to mean what you want it to mean. Whatever they do, the criticisms, when criticisms are more, the scale of criticism is more than it tilts more than compliments in your marriage. In other words, when your partner tiptoes around certain issues, and they tiptoe and they can't really, they don't feel themselves when they are around you, then you are sitting with a problem. Everything that they do, it is seen or it is misinterpreted, and you will misinterpret even the right thing. There is nothing right that they will do. Because in your mind and in your eyes, everything that they do, everything your spouse does, it is misinterpreted and taken to mean whatever you want it to mean. Even if their intentions are correct, even if they mean well, to you, in your life, in your world, your bubble, they didn't mean well. They can buy you flowers. They can buy you gifts. They can take you out. You will find something wrong. They will find something wrong with them. And there's something fundamentally wrong, Bazalwane, with believing that your spouse is a mistake or your marriage is a mistake, because it is a scheme. When you say my marriage is a mistake, it is a scheme. It's a scheme of convenience, firstly. It's a scheme of convenience. When you say my marriage shouldn't be this hard, and I didn't sign up for this, it's as if when the life for you, it's supposed to be all convenient. Life for you, you're not supposed to experience hard times. Life for you, hard times are really something about Apostle Paul, even Jesus. Those are the people that are supposed to have hard times, not me. Mina, it's not for better or worse in my marriage. It's not for richer or poorer in my marriage. It's not for, it's not in sickness and in health in my marriage. It's for richer and for richer. and it's in health and in health. It is never about, the challenges that life throws at us, because for you in your mind, there is this thing, a convenience. It is a scheme of convenience when you say my marriage is a mistake. In marriage, your spouse's trauma may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. Your partner you didn't marry the person you married and they just appeared in front of you. The person you married, they come from somewhere. They've got traumas that they carry and they come with to this marriage, because when the day you said I do, the day you married the person you married to, you didn't just marry them, you married their traumas too. You married everything about them, as well. So when you say I do, you do 360, you do to everything that they come with. And it is important for us to keep that in mind, Bazalwane. So it is a scheme of convenience. But also, number two, it is also a scheme of conformity, wherein we say, if my spouse would just see things my way, if my spouse would see things the way I see them, our marriage would be far much better. In other words, it cannot be that they see things differently. They have to see things my way. And that's the controlling part, that we talk about. in our marriage. You want to come in, babe?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, the fact that I think the approach that most of us, and I think it's also just it's a human nature thing,
Yes.
that we approach marriage from a selfish point of view,
Mm.
where it's always about you, it's always about, no, but they are not making me happy. They are not meeting my needs and all of those things. And it's not about yourself as well as to what role are you playing, in this marriage, because we also need to think of the next person. How are they feeling in their marriage? Are they satisfied in their marriage? Are they also, happy, in this marriage, that they're in? You know, and I think you've touched on this as well, Uguti. Your marriage only becomes a mistake when you amplify your spouse's weaknesses. And that right there, is actually a mistake that you are causing in your marriage. Anything that you amplify becomes bigger than what it is. A common example that is commonly used, and I'm sure we've had it, Uguti, when you take a clean sheet of a white sheet of paper, and you put one small spot on it, that spot will become how you look at it. When you
Mm.
look at that piece of paper, but you amplify, or your focus is just on that small tiny dot on that piece of paper, that dot basically amplifies. Before you know
Amen.
it, you are forgetting everything else in around that white piece of paper. Your focus becomes this one dot, and before you know it, that dot almost becomes bigger than the page itself. So it is very important that we don't really amplify our mistakes, because I mean no one is perfect. When you get into a marriage, you don't get into a marriage because you've got it all figured out. You don't get into a marriage because you know it all. And I
Amen.
think if there's one lesson that we need to take, we well that's how it's supposed to be. We are all getting into a marriage for the first time. No one comes in because they've it's supposed to be a place where we all learn and get our first hand experience in that marriage. So no one comes here already knowing what they need to do and how things need to run in this institution. So you are allowed to make mistakes. You are allowed to get to a point where you don't know what else to do. But very important, your lenses, when it comes to marriage, or in how you view your marriage, is very, very critical. you know
Mm.
what lenses do you have on when you are looking at your partner? How are you viewing them? Because sometimes we look at things from our own lenses. I look at things from where I'm sitting, from where I'm standing, and things, because of where I'm standing, look a certain way. So it's sometimes very important to adjust your lenses every time you are, especially every time there's an issue in your marriage. Adjust your lenses a little bit. Check where your position, check where you are standing, check why you feel a certain way. Because sometimes it really happens, or we see things certain ways because of where the type of lenses that we have on. When
Mm.
you've got your pink lenses on, your view is different. You look at things, everything that you look is based on the lenses that you have put on.
Yes. And also, when we say that it's your marriage is not a mistake, uh, what is a mistake is your lenses. Secondly, what is a mistake and what could rather be a mistake are your habits. We when we marry, we bring all sorts of things into our marriage, and in doing so, when we bring all sorts of things, what one of the things are, habits are very difficult to break. As they are difficult to break, it's easy for us to look at our marriages and look at our partners, and say, no. I think that I have actually married wrong. I think that my marriage is a mistake simply because someone has brought in certain habits in our marriages. And Bazalwane, habits can be broken. And the fact that that is what the problem is, it doesn't mean that our marriages actually are wrong, in themselves. I'll go on to the next one. Phindi, are you good?
Yes, and also just expectations. One of the biggest problems that we find in most marriages is expectations. So you'll find that sometimes what is actually wrong is your expectations. You get into this marriage, what are your expectations? And those could be actually the mistakes. That is why we always encourage couples that when you get into a marriage, especially, in your early years of marriage, your first, second, third year of marriage, make sure that you communicate your expectations with your partner. Let them, because it's very important that from the onset, you are both, or, both of you are moving from the same sort of level of expectations. I think there's absolutely nothing that is as sad as someone gets into a marriage, they're on their 5th year, their 7th, 10th year. They've never spoken about expectations. And obviously, someone is unhappy in this marriage, but you are unhappy because it's actually expectations that were never communicated. I think the saddest part is when someone will tell you that actually I was not even aware that this is what my partner wanted in a marriage. I just got into a marriage, we counted years, life went on. I had no idea that this is exactly what this person wanted. So expectations, especially when those expectations are not communicated, they can actually become the biggest mistake that you are facing in your marriage, because your partner is sitting on one end thinking we've got everything covered, we are all good. You are sitting on one side feeling your expectations are not met, you are unhappy, things are not happening the way that you've expected them to happen. Your colleagues are moving differently, or your friends are at a different level, but you're not moving in your relationship, only to find that your expectations were never really communicated in the first place. And your partner, by the time you mention what your expectations are, they're at a very different level, because they had no idea that this is really what you had in mind when you got into a marriage. So first things first, as early as possible, please do communicate your expectations so that you can ensure that you are on the same level. Just if I can give an example, there are people who get into a marriage with no intentions of having children, right? Um, for a lot of couples or a lot of families, it's almost an expectation, that, okay, now that you're married, or now that you're in your first year, second year, we should be expecting grandchildren and all of that. When you get into a marriage and you don't speak your expectations or don't share your expectations, for example, you don't want to have children in your marriage, that may become a problem at a later stage, because your partner expects, oh, okay, we're in a marriage, therefore it means XYZ. Whereas on the other hand, you have a different expectation altogether. So talking about those expectations is critically important. It's almost like someone who comes into a marriage and has other desires, maybe to further their studies, and all of those things. They may seem small, but it's very important that those expectations are spoken about so that they don't become a hindrance or a problem in your marriage later on.
The other mistake could be your communication. Maybe that's what the mistake is, not necessarily your marriage. It could be that you are speaking amiss. It could be that you have communication patterns that are not compatible. with one another. And that could be the mistake and not necessarily your marriage. And it's important, Bazalwane, for us to understand, if you can go to the next slide, Suri, that we are different. Traditionally, we are different. We look at things differently. And when we speak often, we speak from different perspectives. And that may be the problem, in the marriage. We speak from different from different perspectives. And what is this to me, because of where because of where I come from and because of how I grew up, and this to me meant that. And when I bring that to a marriage, it actually to you means something else. And again, it's a communication issue. We are speaking amiss, and that could be the problem. And that means that it is not wise to throw the baby with the water and actually say, hey, you know what? Lo muntu asitholani naye, you know what I mean? And because asitholani naye, I think I made a mistake in my marriage. You did not make a mistake in your marriage, Bazalwan, and that is what we are wanting to drum, to us as a Bazalwane, that your perspectives. Go to the next slide, babe.
Because, just on
yeah.
just on that point, on perspective. Yes. I think it's also very, very important to understand that when we look at things, male and female, we usually look at things from different lenses, as I said, or from different perspectives. I mean, if you look at, I mean, a woman, for example, they have this very emotional side and all of that. So when you view things, you view them from a very different perspective. But on the other hand, men are very practical and straight to the point, and therefore their perspective is quite different. So it's key as well that when we deal with one another, male and female, we deal with one another understanding the fact that we do look at things or do things from different perspectives.
And of course, I mean, because we see things differently, we differ even in how we see colors. I mean, if we can do, I wish we were live, because with men, you would put colors there. Red. They would just see red, and ladies often they would see scarlet or dark red. They would be more detailed in terms of how they see things, because we are different in terms of how we see. A pink for me is a pink. Don't tell me about strawberry or salmon or whatever. Pink nje kuphelele lapho. Yellow. There's no lemon, and all of that. So we are different.
There's magenta, Sudan.
Hey, because hey, so it's just in terms of our brain function, and this is a whole presentation, Bazalwane, that we don't want to get into now. But I guess the point that we want to make is how different we are, and maybe that is the problem. Maybe the problem that we actually need to amplify here is the fact that one is on FM and the other one is on AM. And we do need to switch into each other's frequency so that we're able to see things from the same perspective. And it takes education. It takes, time, Bazalwane. It takes humility. Marriage takes humility. Me humbling myself and not believe that my perspective is the only correct one. It takes humility for me to be able to say, you know what, all along, this is how I've been doing things. This is how I've been viewing things. But now I have somebody who is viewing things differently. We are coming from two totally different worlds. And that's the reason we are married. We are married because we are different. We cannot marry because we are the same, because there cannot be oneness. Oneness, Bazalwane, is only achieved in difference. Oneness is not achieved in sameness. And that's not the same thing. Sameness and uniformity. Oneness is achieved in difference. It's when you bring your difference, and I bring my difference. I bring my difference, you bring your difference. That's when we can become one. You don't bring the same side of the same thing, of the same coin. And we like the same food, we like the same music, we like the same things. Everything here to Jegiafana. Why can't we married? Because nothing is shutting. You know, I should have married me. You know, and so it's that Bazalwane is actually the problem. And so also again, you know, it's also in maybe the problem, the mistake is in our conflict resolution. Maybe it's not the marriage that is a problem. Maybe it's in how we resolve issues or how we do not resolve issues. And we skirt around issues and we avoid issues, you know, because of our personalities. Some of us, we've got avoidance personalities. One, conflict avoidance, wherein we would rather not engage with that issue. You know, would rather not engage with that issue. And believe me, you know, when somebody is like that, it doesn't mean they don't want things to be fine. Actually, to the contrary, they are doing that because they want things to be fine in their marriage, but they are not going about it the right way, you know, to doing it. And somebody else is very confrontative and you know, they want to engage with issues and all of that, and they confront and all of that, and it's not that they always want to fight, you know, and confronting issues doesn't have to, you know, equal a fight. You know, confronting issues means exactly that. Let's confront an issue. And there's a different way we engage in these communication styles. We engage in these communication styles through bottled emotions. Some of us, you know, we keep quiet and not say anything. And because we're walking around eggshells, you know, in our own marriages, and we would bottle out our emotions, and that is wrong, because something happens in future, and we burst, and we throw everything. We break the television, we break the windows, we break because we had so many bottled up emotions, you know. One of the communication style, and another communication style, others have a controlling behavior. You know, others they just believe things have to be done their way. You know, please go back. Don't go down. Please go back on the slide. Others, you know, they have a very controlling behavior, and others, Bazalwane, you know, they've got a very narcissistic, you know, demeanor in their marriages. You know, they are never wrong. And if something is wrong with them, they'll find a way of making you look wrong. And so that you apologize. Meanwhile, you know that they are wrong. And Bazalwane, that is an evil thing in our marriages that we need to. And then the others, of course, they do it.
Mo, I cannot hear you.
Yes, we have lost Mo.
Is it gone?
Yes, I also cannot hear him.
Can you hear me though?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Should I go ahead?
Yes, you can go ahead.
Okay, I think let me go ahead. He's going to come back. So just to continue on some of the conflict resolution, you know, principles that we can use, or rather things that we fail to do. One of them is silent treatment. Silent treatment is one of the silent, exactly the name, it's one of the silent killers of marriage. A lot of marriages have died in the hands of silent treatment. This is when couples don't want to confront issues. Maybe one of them wants to confront and talk about the issue, but the one just refuses to resolve anything. Instead, they get into a shell and they refuse to basically face the challenges that, or whatever problem that they are facing in a marriage. If there's one thing that people need to understand, silent treatment is never a solution for anything in a marriage. Silent treatment can never solve any problem in a marriage. If anything, silent treatment will eventually kill your marriage. So it's very important that we, as much as possible, kill silent treatment as soon as it raises its head in a marriage. Because the minute you allow it and you give it room, or you give it space in your marriage, more is back. But as soon as you give it space in your marriage, that will eventually kill your marriage. It's actually one of the passive-aggressive forms of emotional abuse. When someone gives you silent treatment in your marriage, you are as good as someone who is in an abusive relationship. You know, your partner may not be abusing you physically, but emotionally, your partner is abusing you, because suddenly you find yourself in this cold house or this cold room with someone in it, but someone who's not willing to face, you know, face things head on, in a marriage. So as quickly as you see it, address things. You may not obviously be able to solve everything in your marriage, as quickly as you would like to solve things, but at least don't get yourselves in a space where you're no longer talking in your marriage. Because what silent treatment does, it actually eventually teaches you how to live without your partner. Before you know it, you actually are at a space where you enjoy not talking to them. You are at a space where you have found other ways, of communicating, or have even found other means of communicating with other people. So by the time your partner comes back, you probably have also checked out. So by the time so silent treatment allows or gives you the ability or the space to learn how to live without your partner. Never ever think that when there's that gap between you and your partner, never ever think that when there's a separation or whatever silent that is happening, either you're not talking for a day or 2 days or a week or whatever number of days that you're not talking, never ever get to a point where you think that is solving anything in your relationship. If anything, that space that you allow is actually drifting you apart from your partner without even you realizing. By the time that partner comes back, there is some level of drift of movement that has happened. You are no longer relating to them the same way. You are no longer looking at them the same way. So do not allow that space, of silent treatment. You rather face things on and face whatever challenge that you have in your marriage, because it teaches you how to live or even survive, without your partner. And that's a space you don't want to find yourself in, where life is fine, whether your partner is around or if or your partner is not around. Mo, do you want to continue there?
And we Yeah, and we decided to zoom on this Bazalwane because it is very, very common among Abazalwane. In fact, not just Abazalwane, everybody, people that are married, the silent treatment. And I'm sorry, we're using very strong language. And perhaps the reason for that, it is so that we are able to see, how abusive and emotionally abusive silent treatment is, so that we need to see pebeze, in our marriages. We need to see pebete, in our relationship, so that we need to sort it away, in our relationship, because silent treatment, it will kill your marriage. It will kill. We are coming from different backgrounds, and sometimes you may find that, because silent treatment, it is a form of communication style that has always worked for me, where I come from. And that means that whenever I don't get things my way, or whenever I get I disagree with someone, I go into a shell and isolate myself and all of that, until somebody comes and get me out of the shell. But if I marry somebody, and by the way, just to confess myself, that used to be me, and I would go into my shell and so on. And if an Phindi, would come and get me from my shell, and so on, and then life will continue, because Namutolo Guti, I've been missing her. When you are giving someone silent treatment, you also, you miss them. There are times where man, I miss. But now, because of silent treatment, you can't even say hi, because you can't do the things that you usually do, together when times are good, and all of that. But it got to a point where she dealt with this thing with me very harshly, and I thank God for it now, wherein she didn't come to the shell. I sat there and waited for her to come. 2 days have passed. Aibo, I was because I feel isolated and I feel, it's quiet, it's lonely, and all of that, until I learned myself to step out of the shell, and you step out of the shell in a sneaky way, by simply picking up something that they dropped, and you put it back on, and or you break, and it's important at this point, Bazari, to say that in conflict resolution, when a partner makes an initiative to actually end a conflict, do not close it off. Do not say, just because, oh, so you want to talk now. Because now what you're doing is you are actually driving, them back, and actually you are making things, worse. Always have open arms rather, when someone is showing initiative to actually break a conflict. And that is so critical. That is so important, Bazoran, to keep in mind. Sorry, we're not going to according to notes because our time is really getting. Do you want to go to the next one, babe?
Yes, but I just wanted to say quickly, this, I always compare silent treatment to, in fact, there's a very thin line between giving someone silent treatment and having pride, because there is an element there where, especially the person that gives silent treatment, sometimes they want to earn silent treatment, but it becomes difficult because you've been silent for a day or whatever hours and not talking, and suddenly it becomes very hard to get out of that box where you've put yourself. So pride sometimes does play a role. When the Bible says pride comes before a fall, you need to be very careful, because there's also an element of pride, where someone will even have a problem to say, you know what, I'm sorry, or you know what, I did this wrong, or I wasn't supposed to do this, or whatever. So in a marriage, you have to get used, to saying sorry when there's something that deserves you saying sorry, because there is this pride that a lot of people in marriage have. I will not say anything. I will wait for him or her, to come and fetch me. Mo made reference that when he was in this box, he will wait. Okay, Phindi, please come and fetch me. But sometimes it becomes very tiring. You want someone who's upfront in a marriage, who even when they are not happy about something, who will be open to say, actually, I wasn't happy with XYZ. That act, I did not enjoy it. When you said this didn't land well with me, then someone who, gets into a shell every time there's something that is not right, they get into a shell and expect somebody else to come and get them. Suri, what slide should you want me to go to?
Let's just jump. Okay, we're gonna jump your beliefs, because Bazalwane, we've got self-limiting beliefs, that we bring into our marriages that cause us to believe that we've married wrong. What is it about your spouse? What is it about women that you believe that you're bringing that into the marriage? What is it about men that you believe men must, and you bring that into the marriage? And that could, mother, and all of that, and I want to treat my wife the same way, or I want to go the opposite way and say I will never treat my wife that way because my father was abusive and whatever, but now I seek to go the opposite direction, but without realizing that I'm actually doing the same thing, although because I'm going. So your beliefs could be the problem. Also, your childhood traumas could be the problem, as well. And I'm hoping we can go that in the during the Q&A. But lastly, just to finish off the slides, finding a compatible partner is critically important. But what is more important, Bazalwane, it is being the type of person your spouse would benefit from being married to. Be that person. What you want your spouse to be Be that person when Nakala, so that you are able to lead this, this process, because not one you can't be that one who that's destructively critical, negative and contemptuous, in the relationship. No one is everything. No one would be everything we want, in our marriages. No one would be everything. Everyone is somewhat crazy at some level. we bring a level of crazy, at some level, in our marriages. Even if you think you'll meet just the right person to spend the rest of your life with, there'll be things about them that will draw your attention to their imperfections. And that's very, very important to keep, in mind, because we all have strange quirks and habits, that makes, us imperfect, in our marriages. Your marriage, Bazalwane, in conclusion, is not a mistake. It's your worldview that probably needs adjusting. Never regret being with a fallible, human being, as if now you are infallible. And that's the message that we want to drive, in this as we close. Thank you so much. It is 2030. And we're told with you there will be about 15 minutes of engagement, hereafter. Thank you so much. Sweetie, you want to conclude?
No, thank you so much. I know that we will answer Q&A, but I quickly want to end by saying, sometimes our backgrounds and experiences, are the ones that influence how we get into this marriage. Sometimes you can look at your marriage and look at things that are happening on your marriage based on your childhood traumas. Because I've grew up a certain way, and now when I suddenly find myself with this man that I call my husband, I'm looking at my childhood, I'm looking at this husband, and I feel like, you know what? I don't think there's a match, or I feel like something is not right. But it may not be that something is not right, but it may be that you have things in your life, or your own experiences, or your own traumas, or your own things that you have gone through in your life growing up are impacting how you view this person that you now call your husband, or your wife, for that matter. Thank you so much, guys, for your time. We are looking forward to questions. Thank you.
She asked, how is his trauma my responsibility?
Can I take that, Sudi?
Okay, babe.
Trauma is definitely your responsibility. Because when we marry someone, you marry everything that they come with. The same way that you marry their wins, the same way that you marry their successes, you also marry their traumas. In actual fact, we have a belief that God put two people together for that particular reason, so that you are able to heal one another, so that you are able to help one another grow, so that you are able to help one another become what God has purposed each person to be. So we are not just in marriage for vibes, we're not just in marriage for when things go right, but we are also in the marriage for when things don't go right. So I think, to just sum it up, we are there to heal one another. The same way, I don't know why I'm assuming that's a lady that asked that question, but I don't know, for some reason I'm thinking it's a lady. The same way that even your own traumas, if this was a lady who was asking, your husband has a responsibility towards making sure that you become the best version of yourself. So you cannot you cannot be the best version of yourself if there's areas that are not complete, if there's areas that are bleeding, if there's areas that are bruised, if there's areas that need healing. You are unable to get to a point where you are the best version of yourself. So your responsibility then in a marriage, when you get into a marriage, unfortunately, people come from different backgrounds. You are blessed if you find yourself having married someone who comes from a perfect world, where there's absolutely nothing that has broken them, or where there's absolutely no area of their lives, that is not straight. We unfortunately marry people who have a past. We marry people who have had bad experiences. We marry people who've had traumas. We marry people that have gone through things in life. And when you get together with that person, you have in fact, each one of you has a responsibility. It's not a one-sided thing. As a man, when you get into a marriage, you have a responsibility towards that wife. As a wife, you have a responsibility towards that husband. That is why, when you look at the woman, you are called a suitable helper. I like the fact that this ministry is called exactly that. As a suitable helper, I always emphasize on the word suitable, because when you look at the word suitable, it means that person is a right fit. That person is perfect for the job at hand. They are suitable, and my suitability and your suitability are not the same, because your suitability is based on the person that you have married, your husband. You are suitable for your husband. You are suitable for your husband's journey. You are suitable for where your husband has been. So in other words, you are the perfect man for the job. you know so it is your responsibility in that sense.
Oh, I love that answer. Thank you, sis. That's so powerful. And I love what you said, that we did not make a mistake. And I believe also we were not joined together by coincidence. And there is a question on that one. And someone asked, how do you know if you are not joined by God?
I think that, yeah, I saw the question earlier. I think that because it came very early before we went in, I think that in one of the slides we did engage with it, and we made an example, a biblical example rather, of a David and Bathsheba, whose relationship began wrong. There's Bazalwane, we can sit here and say, "Ay, uNkulunkulu, it was written in the stars, and our paths crossed, and there were angels upon us, and which drew us together." We met the way we met. We met the way we met. Some of us were not even abazalwane when we met. Some of us, we met, everywhere. We met, as I said earlier on, we met in my tavern, some of them are clubbing, for some of us. And for some of us, I went in and took somebody's girl, who was dating somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying we met the way we met. There is no black and white answer to say, the correct way, that I can never be that presumptuous, and claim to know, such an answer. This is God or this is not God. I think it's important just for us to know what it is that has put us together, the two of us. It's important for us to keep that in mind, because when we know our why, we will never divert into other things. We will never even question the reasons, because our why will answer all those kind of questions. When we meet together around purpose, and we unite around that purpose, having God as a center of our relationship, we put Christ as a center of our relationship. Trust me, Bazalwane, I believe we're on the right track. We're on the right track, and it therefore the question becomes irrelevant. Because in any case, it doesn't matter where we met. God is a redemptive God. God is a redeeming God. Anyway, you know what I mean? And I'm saying, Uguti, that that is what is important that we need to take forward. Uguti, that our God is a redeeming God. He's a God that, is able to, make all things that love him. Amen.
Amen. We were losing you a bit.
Phindi, do you wanna close your last point properly?
Oh, no. I was just saying, God is able to make all things, work together for the good of them that love him. Bazalwane, life is very gray. But I know sometimes we appear as if we have all the answers. When I say we, I mean as a people in general. We appear as if we have all the answers. We know this and we know that. Life is very, very gray. Life is not black and white. We've got we've got the word that serves as our guide, into things. It's important that we ensure that we align our lives according to His will, God Jehovah, and moving forward. We need to what Revelation calls you pick up the things that you pick up the stuff that is left. We pick up the stuff that is left, Bazarana, and we move forward. We come into marriages bruised. We come into marriages hurt. We come into marriages, with baggage. We come into marriages emotionally scarred, and all of that. It is important for us to pick up what is there. And to the question that was before this, Bazalwane, each one of us, Jamasiza, as we come into marriage with all these scars and so on, I have a responsibility towards my healing journey, as Mo, but being married, I expect that Phindi is besides me, is next to me to help me in that journey, as well, because what we also want to engage with, Bazalwane, is lento yokuthi that for Phindi now, because of where I come from and the scars I come with, for Phindi now all of a sudden to mother me, for Phindi all of a sudden, to be my parent. Meanwhile, Phindi did not marry a child. Phindi married a fully grown human being, a man with 32 teeth, and who needs to, take responsibility for his own life. But at least, extend grace enough for Ugutu Phindi to come in and help me, as I move on with life. Sorry, I'm taking long, but that's really what I wanted to say. Thanks.